So without further ado, please welcome Sam Led to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. I love your show. I 100 episodes in, we were just talking about like, if you make it past episode 3, like you're almost gone pro, and you're
Right.
100 episodes in. So you're like,
yeah, what am I?
most valuable podcast.
The MVP.
You get a
the
gold star.
MVPP. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Love it.
Yes.
Well, I love doing my research and deep dives. And when I was doing my Sam-led deep dive the last few days, I understand why. I always know there's a reason that someone either reaches out to me or I know that I am connected to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to think, I know your book is like fearless. And I love that. That catches my eye because I'm all about everything's on the other side of fear. And then I love your view on everything is perfect. And what we don't think is all an illusion. I'm all about that. And I guess, with you, I see somebody that had to go through something as a young boy growing up to, being labeled and doing, being, confused at why you were different or, all that stuff to get to where you are today. So you could be the person to help be the light, and I see you as this, beacon of light. And
thank you.
Helping other people uncover their magic. And I love uncovering people's magic, by the way.
Because it's right there. It's like, it's where you lost your favorite fountain pen under the seat cushion, in your car. You find it like 5 years later. Or like there's a rattle in your dash and like this happened to me actually. And you find the reason why the dash was making so much noise is because there was a parking ticket got stuck, lodged in underneath it. Well, that's the same thing with wisdom and the same thing with, our essential nature, who we are underneath the noise, underneath our thinking.
Right.
And for me, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. It took me into middle agehood to really see the illusion, but also have compassion for myself and other neurodiverse folks. I call it nerd. You can call it a ham sandwich. Doesn't really matter. Neurodiverse folks who really believe their thinking for so many decades. Like all of us in some way or another, we come to this moment in our life when we things either click or we have to learn something again. Mm-hmm. And I kept learning a lot of things over and over again. And then I got pretty good at those lessons. And then I realized like, okay, it's so innocent because none of us really learn how to use our mind. Mm-hmm. We're taught biology, we're taught the neurobiology, synapsing and axons and dendrites and gray matter, but we're not really taught how to use the brain like a tool,
right?
Like an instrument. We're taught, through punitive, punishment. If you do this consequence and action. But if I was shown, and a lot of other neurodiverse folks, there's 120 million other people out there that have ADHD, or they're on the spectrum, whatever label you want to, because I don't believe in the labels. And I look back at it and say, if we were taught how to use our mind like a pilot learns how to fly a plane, like how the mind really works, that we are not the sum total of our thinking, that we have agency over our thinking, that thinking doesn't come from us, that there's something beyond thought. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. I mean, but I guess the psychological innocence in all of that, and we can't go back and that's okay. Is that, thank goodness I saw it. Eventually I saw it.
Right.
And just as a note, we are changing the name of the book. So I know you love it.
Oh, you are.
We're going to probably put that in the, in the, what do you call it? The byline, okay. But we're looking at Not Broken, which is also, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But well, see, I go back to when you were 7 and you were struggling at school and, trying to, do what you're supposed to do, right? I have 2 girls, 13 and 15. And, I've watched them go through school and, listening to them come home and, when they're little, like the kids, acting out or, and then all of a sudden, like when I'm 53, and when I was younger growing up, there wasn't ADHD. There was not all these labels that
That's
have
right.
come into this life now. And I just, when you say you don't believe in those labels, I don't either. And I don't give it anything because I look at it like you do. And that's why when I think of these kids that are suffering from these people,
Innocently.
yes,
Yeah,
innocently.
and it's unpacking our conditioning. And I love what you said there. It's like, your kids, we have this thing called thought. It's the greatest invention, the greatest tool, the greatest technology. It's wonderful. But we're also not taught how to really use this technology. Like I just mentioned, the mind, thought, and our conscious self. So like, I guess through kids innocently, they stumble and they figure it out, some of them. But for me, it was a real game changer. Like, when I was a little kid growing up in the early 80s, the same thing. Like they were just throwing darts at a board. They're like, we'll give him Ritalin. And if he doesn't freak out or have like a horrible, adverse event, okay, that
Mhm.
works. And that's what they did. I mean, MRIs didn't come out until like the mid 80s. So this is even before that. And we didn't know a lot about, neurodiverse folks. We just think differently. There's
Right,
nothing wrong with us.
right.
There's a great book that your audience would love. It's called Neurotribes. And it's a
Hmm.
case study. It's a very thick book. It's like uh, what's that thick Civil War book called? War and Peace or something like that.
Oh,
It's like
right. Yeah.
600 pages. Yep, it's like a coffee table book. And there are a whole bunch of case studies about kids that were diagnosed with Asperger's or on the spectrum or some form of neurodevelopmental quote unquote disorder, the label again. And it's not that there's anything wrong with them. They just communicate differently. We're
Right,
the ones that don't understand.
right.
So we're not taught that way. And actually, if you Google ADHD or Asperger's,
Mhm.
especially ADHD, the first thing that comes up is prefrontal cortex, executive functioning dysfunction. If it's this, listen, if I'm the only person with ADHD walking on the planet, yes, there's something wrong with me, but there's 120 million other folks out there, young and old, that have ADHD. So
Right.
it doesn't make any sense. So when we see like, we are not living in a world of like this outside circumstances, the labels, the do what you're told kind of stuff. I'm no, zealot. We're living in a world of thought,
Mhm.
100% of the time, 365 days a year,
Right. There's what,
24 hours a
80,000
day.
thoughts a day that we think, 60
And
to
yeah,
70. Yeah.
and
They're
we're
all
living in our
basically the
computer.
same. Yeah.
Exactly. We're living in the machine of our thinking. We're living in our psychology. And once we see like our brain loves us, but it will do anything in its power to keep us safe, to
Right.
keep us alive. And it doesn't care if it does a lot of stupid stuff for survival. It does a
Mhm.
lot of stupid stuff.
What do
And
you teach people about ego? Because that's just came in through me. That your ego, right? Is that what you think?
ego's interesting because it's all the same thing. You can call it turkey sandwich, doesn't matter,
Right.
right? It's pastrami on rye. I like that better actually. um but when we have a machine, it's a laptop computer between our ears. Some people have iOS operating systems, other people have MS-DOS, some people have Android systems. When we see that the sole function of the brain is to keep us alive, to
Mhm.
protect us, to protect itself, why are we surprised that it does all kinds of funky things? And then why do we believe the story being created in real time when we're in a low mood, when our state of mind naturally is cloudy? It's like,
Mhm.
the other week I was driving through the fog up in the mountains above Santa Barbara, coming down from Los Olivos, and it was thick fog. I couldn't see anything, like nothing. I was like, oh my God, I need to pull over. And of course it's a pass. There's no railings. I'm going to pull over off, you
Oh,
know,
geez.
yeah, it was fine. It was good. It tested my resilience. So I'm driving, I can't see, I'm slowing down, and I'm going down this, it's like you have it in San Diego too. It's like a grade, it's like a 7% grade. And um 2 minutes later, I just come out of the fog bank,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Behind me, you can't see a thing, but in front of me, it's gorgeous. California, the golden
Right.
rays of the California sun.
Yes.
So that's how thought works. That's how state of mind works. And when we don't take our thinking seriously, when we're caught up like that, it doesn't matter what it is. Your boss can yell at you, you get a cancer diagnosis, get in a car accident, whatever it is. Once you see like that, you're never going to win the game of thought. You can't stop thought. And if you try to, you're just bucking against your own psychology that's made up in real time by the greatest screenwriter of all time, the greatest soap opera writer, your brain. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we got Martin Scorsese, Stephen King, and Oliver Stone all up here creating
Right.
narrative in real time. And it's amazing that we take it so seriously. And ego is kind of like the conductor. But once we see the ego's made up too, and once we see that our essential nature, who we are underneath the fog bank of our thinking, is well-being,
Yes.
is
Love.
love,
Love. You read my mind. Love.
is resilient, is
Right.
hopeful.
I always think of ego when Wayne Dyer, I love Wayne Dyer.
I love Wayne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Etching God out. He always said that. And I used to think, and where I'm at now in my spiritual life and practice, and, as a mom teaching my children and my students and all that, is, when you realize that all it is love. Everything else is an illusion. And when you can really learn that, especially as a 7-year-old boy at school, no, like that's my mission on this planet, is to teach children that all it is love. And, you think of, as a parent, you have nieces and nephews, you don't have your own children, right?
Yes, I have you have good memory. Eight-year-old niece and a 6-year-old nephew. Actually, he just turned 6. He's very into Legos these days. I think but he wanted the Porsche Lego thing.
Oh, cute.
He's he's got good taste. But I didn't even know they made a Porsche Lego set. I'm like, okay.
Oh,
I'm going to
that's cute.
remind him in 20 years that I bought him all these expensive toys that he doesn't use. But yeah, like it's once like we see like that our default state, our that life's got us, that our true north is well-being. And once we see that, like the most mundane, I never could say that word
I can't
correctly.
either. That's so funny. Mundane.
Mundane. Okay. Mundane. I got a very weird accent because I'm a Southern Yankee Californian. I'm all over the place. Once we see like those little moments in life, like driving to the supermarket and you just drop into the present moment, life slows down. That's nirvana. That's when we're closer to what I point to with the work I do with my clients, and what the principles point to that I share with my clients, and how mind works, is that like we're not our noise. And it's normal to get caught up in the noise, just as normal as it to drop out of the noise. But if we're going to try to do a technique or go and get some training to fix our brain, that's great, but you're trying to fix something that's not broken. Right. And that's hard for a lot of people to hear. Though, a lot of people say, well, you don't know what my life has been like. I was diagnosed with this, and my father was this, and
the stories.
Story. Yeah. Hyperbole.
It's all a story. And I think most of my, looking around and, going to the grocery store, for example, go there, you can sit around and observe the people, and look at what they're living like, and what I can almost see the noise in their head and how they react, or, with different people, and what stories they're telling themselves for their entire life, and never get out of that. They don't free themselves to the knowing that it's just stories that you keep talking about. Change your story, change your life.
And they see it just like we all do, like, because we all forget, right? Wayne Dyer talks about getting in the gap, with great book. I had his audio tapes when they were on tape back.
Yes, I did too. Oh my gosh.
Back in the day, and we see it all day long. We're in a walking meditation all day long. And that I saw that in myself. I'm like, what is this, spiritual mumbo jumbo, this California woo woo stuff, it's all sanctimonious, but point back to the quiet moments in our life. We are quiet all day long. We just don't pay attention to it enough.
Right.
We think that the sum total of our experience is what's going on outside of us, which actually is 100% false. The sum total of our experience is the stories.
Right.
And once we can unpack like how our conditioning, how we are raised, and all the habitual thought that has kind of caused a lot of suffering, it's really amazing how life, despite how good or bad your outside circumstances are, can be. And I'm not saying that, look, life's a contact sport. I mean, we're gonna get our knocks, and I
Right.
stole that from Sid Banks, but
We came here to do that. That was why
yeah,
we chose to come, is to
yeah,
do that and then go through all the limiting beliefs and, try to minimize the triggers in your life. And I feel that, when you watch people in traffic or, I can live a pretty neutral life at this stage and I'm proud of the work I've done. But, when you watch these people struggling with the reactions and I saw one this morning and I thought, and I always am trying to show the girls, like, they're like, Mom, that was terrible. I said,
right,
they just must, something's wrong. Or even at school, bullies, trying to teach them, send them love. They don't know any better. That's the story they're playing. They learned that from somebody, they're just playing in that, whatever they're trying to do. There's something going on in that little mind. Send them love.
yeah. And I love you mentioned bully, because actually I befriended my elementary school, junior high school bully, because I saw his quiet. I mean, I was like 11. I mean, I didn't know what it was. I just, like, when he calmed down, when he slowed down, like, he wasn't trying to show off in front of others and make himself look bigger. It was just me, and his name was Owen. Hey, Owen, how you doing, man? I don't know where he is, but was actually a nice kid, nice guy. Like, but to befriend your your elementary and junior high school bully, like, he was like twice my size. I was a little shrimp. Um, that's testament to the illusion that
Mhm.
as Michael Neal, who's one of my favorite coaches, and he's the one who spoke with Anita Morjani in a workshop about 2.5 years ago down in Newport Beach. He calls it, we are diamonds covered in doo-doo, layered in lipstick. So
Mhm.
our essential nature is this effervescent, expansive energy of light, love, and compassion and understanding and slowing down. And everything else is these stories, that we think that we need the lipstick and everything else to get to the next step in our life.
Mhm.
That's not true, because I'm a
No.
living testament of it, and so are you.
Right. Will you
Because
explain to me that with you, like your experience getting to where you really kind of
sure,
teaching,
yeah, yeah,
coaching, what inspired you to write the book? I mean, where you came from. I mean, I know a little bit, but
yeah. I'm
there's
a little bit
something
all
that
over the place.
there's something that's hidden, like a 10-year ago event that you can't share, right?
Well, it wasn't that so much. It was there was two big events that were even bigger than, I mean, they're all just life events. They're all just lessons, but there were two big events in the last 7 years. One was the fires here in Santa Barbara
Hmm.
that almost burnt my house down, and I was caught in it. And the second one was when I got divorced, when my marriage fell apart. And what the first one, uh, the fire, which basically came through and was all the way down in LA County and came up through Ojai and Ventura and to Santa Barbara. I mean, it was very close to just destroying the small little town we love.
Hmm.
Um, and I remember waking up in the morning, I couldn't breathe. And there was soot everywhere, and you couldn't even see the sun. You have, the fires in San Diego
Yeah.
are
Oh,
just as
yeah.
bad.
Right.
Um, but this fire was like one of the biggest. It was the Thompson fire, and I've been through fires, but this one, and I was by myself. Just was just separated. My ex moved back to Germany. So it was just me, myself, and I in a small little town, 100 miles north of LA, doing my thing, doing my coaching. I had a brick and mortar practice at the time. And it was so bad. I'm like, I'm going to die. Like, you looked
Huh.
up into the hills, the mountains, the Los Padres National Forest up here, and it was on fire. You looked east, it was on fire. You looked north, everything was on fire.
Wow.
And so I was depressed is the understatement from losing my partner. I'm now stuck in my townhome with barely any gas in my car. Like, we all just woke up to this. Like, it wasn't like, you can't plan for a fire. I mean, there was winds, but you know what it's like
Right.
living here. And I couldn't breathe. It hurt to breathe. The fire was so close.
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't, there was soot all over the car. I woke up in the morning to this, and my eyes are burning. I really thought this was it. It was just going to come down the hill and then just explode and destroy, kill us all. Well, thankfully that didn't happen. But the weird thing was, I mean, I was so scared. I mean, my family's all back east. It's just me, and I have a couple of friends. I have some family in the Bay Area, but just me. All this traumatic stuff had happened to me, and now we have a fire, right?
Huh.
Not a small fire, like one of the biggest fires in California history. And I'm like, okay, I give up. I surrender. What do you want from me, God? And I really thought this was it. But then something really happened. And it's never happened to me before. Even when I was separated from my partner and that fell apart, I was so scared. But then there were moments like that I was just calm. Like, I couldn't even drive my car because, the visibility was zero. It was that bad. It looked like a nuclear fallout, basically. I didn't prepare for it. No one prepared for it. I didn't have, I had to go, I had no groceries. I had very limited water. I was like, this is it, Sam.
Wow.
You did your best, and now it's time
To
for the next
go.
life. Time to go. And long story short, it was the calmest I've ever been in my entire life. And it had nothing to do with the fire. And nothing to do with the fire. My brain was saying, Sam, you're going to die. Sam, you need to get out of here. Sam, look at your life. It's burned. You've just burned your life down, literally and figuratively, with the divorce and then with the fire. And my brain is doing gymnastics, but then all of a sudden I just dropped out of my thinking, and I was the calmest I've ever been in my entire life. And then an hour after, like, I had to put towels, under the door, so the smoke wouldn't come in. I get a call from a friend like 2 hours after this whole, like, disaster is going on. And she was visiting from Ireland. She's like, Sam, I got a rental car. Let's go. We're going to go to LAX, try to get a ticket out of here. I'm like, okay. We got in the car and we left. A week later, we had a mudslide that killed 18 people, destroyed the freeway in Santa Barbara. And I wasn't here, thankfully. But how can someone feel so calm? It wasn't like I was trying to be calm. It wasn't like I was trying to push it away. I naturally dropped into my default state, like we all have. Like, I wasn't adrenaline. It was just peace. If I'm going to die, I'm going to die. Okay. And I've never had that experience before. I think what happened is that the noise just became too ridiculous after a while. It's just absurd. It was like, I stopped believing the noise.
Right.
I really saw it. Like, we're all just one thought away from mental well-being, even in a fire, even with a cancer diagnosis, even et cetera, et cetera. You look at what's going on in Ukraine. Look at, despite the horror of war.
Right.
Look how proud these people are. And even when bombs are falling, kids are playing in the streets. People are still going on with life. Not because they're faking it. It's because our essential nature is well-being, even in a war situation, even in
Hmm.
a fire, even in name your favorite tragedy. I mean, there's been a lot. COVID.
Right. Right. I know a lot lately. But what
Yeah.
can you, like, going into that calm state that you're talking about, is that now something that you can access like immediately? Can you go right there again now that you know what it feels like?
I got really curious, like as a coach and as a, 'cause I'm also a Reiki practitioner and I'm an acupuncturist too, laser acupuncture. So I noticed it in my clients when they would get calm.
Hmm.
You know, but Sam, I always said I had the noisiest brain, you know. I have like the MVP noisiest brain of all time. Like I thought I was walking around with the loudest self-talk, negative self-talk in the history of
Hmm.
brains that's possible. And what I saw was it just seemed so ludicrous. Like it didn't make any sense to me. Like if I'm so calm and so present during this crazy huge fire, then something's up. I got really curious. I started to notice things more. Not like I was deliberately noticing things, but I saw like suffering is really optional.
Mhm.
Not to say that we won't suffer in our thinking. Not to say like Sam's gonna, get angry again, but I'm not gonna beat myself up for it, right?
Right.
I saw the divinity within myself. I saw the divinity in who we are, and it wasn't the fire that made me see it. I saw it all along, like all of us do. We just don't pay attention to it enough because
Right.
it's not sexy. It's boring as hell. Like we think like Nirvana is like some kind of like Fourth of July fireworks, like oh, top of the
Right.
mountain, with the, you know, no,
Right.
the
I know you
most, yeah.
no, I just know you always talk, I always talk about living in the now, present moment. This is all we have, and I'm so about that in my daily life, about, observing the trees and being outside and
Getting gas is enjoyable. Like,
sure, you can
I
make
have,
anything, right?
but not
Especially when
even,
it's
but you
six
don't have
dollars a
to.
gallon
I
now.
love it. Listen, the greatest thing about this understanding that I share, which is revolutionary because it's showing us that we live in a world not outside in, like we've been conditioned to believe, but inside
Mhm.
out,
Yeah.
that it's okay to get caught up. Like you're not going to win the battle. Like you can go to a therapist, you can go to a coach, and they can teach you all these tools. I can go on NLP and CBT and EMDR. It's one great acronym, but you don't really need that because you see this space that I'm pointing to. That space, as Michael Neal calls it, the space before thought. I
Mhm.
saw it even in this crazy firestorm. I saw it when my ex took off and left. I saw it when all my life tragedies, like all of our life traumas, whatever you want to call it. Again, ham sandwich, pastrami salad.
Right.
We see it. Yeah, feeling our thinking is uncomfortable. Yes, but it's not going to kill us.
Right.
Like I I saw that. Like I can have a panic attack driving on the freeway because I for some reason my brain loves panic attacks. I don't know why, but I can pull over on the side of the road and be okay with it.
Meaning like you are driving and it's
Freak
just
out, freak
okay.
out, have
Huh.
it. It sucks. It's uncomfortable. It's terrible, but it's not going to stop me from driving
Right.
because it's ultimately when I see that there's a ghost in the machine, like that great Police song, great album. Was it Zenyatta Mandata? I think it was that album. Great album. We ultimately, again, when we see like we're gonna forget, then we might have road rage, and then we'll remember again and be like, oh, there's the brain going. It's doing its thing, that kooky brain, right?
Hmm.
And then we remember again. And it's like this cognitive cha-cha. But what ends up happening is once we notice more that quiet, that we're not our noise, that we're not our, I call it thought turbulence, that if I can just really get calm and quiet and not freak out during a major fire, I mean, or deal with major loss and grief like we all do, and be okay with freaking out. This is part of our human psychology.
Mhm.
Life's, thought is the greatest technology we were never taught how to use until like people meet people like you and I that share some of this work.
Right.
We ultimately have agency over thought because, the 80,000 thoughts that come through our cortex, it's like a salad bar, pick and choose. And if you like tiramisu, have one slice tiramisu, not 10, right?
Right.
Same
Yeah.
thing with thought. And sometimes we mess up and we give life to thought that probably not a good idea. And it was interesting. I had a client who was in recovery. I worked with lots of folks in recovery down in Malibu as a consultant, sharing this understanding and he was
Recovery, you mean like
drugs and
alcohol?
alcohol. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so he was very combative. He was not happy to be there. He was giving everybody a hard time. And this was, I never worked with him before. I just observed him, scared, angry. No one did anything right in his mind. He was suffering. He can't believe he spent all this money and he's still stuck. And the story,
Mhm.
hyperbole, right? The yeah
Yeah.
buts.
Yep.
And then I met him and he's like, okay, Sam, you're just another coach. Okay, just let's get this over with. Let's just go through the motions. I'm like, okay. We didn't talk about anything real. We talked about the Giants, Pink Floyd, and I think he liked Don Miguel Ruiz. He loved the Four
Oh,
Agreements.
how funny.
We had a conversation about nothing, but we laughed. We were so present. And at the end of the conversation, I said, how do you feel right now? He's like, great. He's like, I don't know what we talked about, but I said, exactly. I said, I saw you there. We talked about things that you love. We just were two blokes sitting there talking. You weren't caught up in your failures. You weren't caught up in how angry you were at the world. That moved through you. On to the next.
Yeah.
Thought doesn't sit with us. And he saw something. He still gave me a look like, what are you, some, hippie woo-woo, Malibu, he's from back east. He saw something there for sure.
When you have your clients come to you and they have that, you know, be, on another note besides that person, but like a little kid or, someone young that you can relate to because you knew that that was what you were going through. How
Mm.
do you get that little mind to not have that recording go? What are some of your tools that you use?
Well, I listen for truth. I listen for quiet. I mean, we all do this, the oh my God, the machine gun. I call it the
Right.
machine gun. Yeah, but I just get really present and get really curious. And if they're saying stuff that's hyperbole, the mind's creating story around, our mind is the greatest narrator. Our mind is that's why the soap operas have been around for 50 years, because we love drama. We get addicted to drama. We can repattern our brain if we're not careful by focusing on drama and chaos. That's why I say don't buy a TV. If you have to, then just stream Netflix, and even that's bad. But everybody likes good Netflix once in a while.
We
A
just
good
started that.
binge.
We don't usually watch
What are you watching
TV.
now?
The girl, All American. We just started. My sisters were telling me about it.
All American.
All
I think I
American.
saw it on the thing. Yeah, but I was into Ozark, which is
Oh yeah, I
not
think
light.
Richard watches that. But that's
Yeah.
funny that you say that because that was just 2 nights ago. So it's a brand new thing in mine. And Paige was like, we were all laying in bed watching it, and Paige the next day because I fell asleep. I said, "How was it?" She's like, "I'm addicted." Oh my gosh, mom, it is so good. I want to watch it all day. I said, "Wow." I said, "It's amazing what they do. It's like an addiction. They
But
get
you
you.
know what's so
It's
great
like
about
the
it though?
cliffhangers or whatever."
Totally. And you have to watch. But the greatest thing about it is, and I had a client that said to me, felt so guilty about like not getting work done and watch and just
Right, binging.
binging. I said,
Yeah.
that's great, because the best thing because that was your kind of your inner guidance saying, you're too caught up right now. You're too zoomed into whatever problem you're dealing with.
Right.
Time to like
Yeah,
binge, like
escape.
we don't really see it like that like the stories we tell ourselves about life, it's all made up, all of
Mhm.
it. Now, I'm not saying you don't have to pay taxes, and I'm not saying that like stuff happens, but and you don't have to be the Dalai Lama. You could just have a nicer experience.
Mhm.
And that's what I share with my clients. And I kind of point them back to that nicer experience. That's not optional. That's not something we had to work for. I mean, I was in LA, in was it Culver City? I don't know, my girlfriend and I, she moved up to Santa Barbara from Santa Monica, and we go down there to visit friends, and there's a lot of unfortunately, it's very sad. And I saw a guy, homeless guy, having the best day ever.
Huh.
Like, he was jamming out to Bob Marley. Like, yeah, it'd probably be better if he had a roof over his head. I'm sure things would be probably a little bit less dangerous, but he's present and he's enjoying the moment.
Right.
Um, and I will never forget this. My grandmother, she's going to be actually turning 100
Oh,
on June
cool.
17th. Yeah. She said to me, live the best life you can with what you have in this moment. And she, 100 years, that's
Right.
wisdom. But we
Totally.
have that within us and we don't have to work for it.
Right.
No, it's like, it's original equipment. It's pre-installed at the factory when we're born.
Right.
Like, when we come into this world, we have this meat jacket on, but we're so much bigger than all that.
Right.
And it's so funny, like, when our ego and our intellect hits a wall and we freak out, that's when we see, like, oh wait, that piece of it, my brain is not trying to make me suffer. It just is not smart. The brain is like a check engine light. It's a diagnostic system, like in our car, right?
Right.
The car
I love
doesn't
that.
care if the the car's not saying, oh, I'm so sorry, Sam, you're for putting the check engine light. I know it's an inconvenience, right?
Yeah.
No, our brain does the same thing. Like, it's alerting us to when we're too zoomed in, yet we think there's something wrong with us. Anxiety and depression is kind of like when we're too zoomed into our problems, and we're not like taking a step back and just like putting the engines in neutral for a second, seeing what's going on. It's kind of like an overheating hair dryer. It's
Hmm.
like, like in a hotel, I've blown so many fuses with hair dryers in hotels. That's what I think, that's the ultimate metaphor for when we are too zoomed in to the point where we're actually um, sort of hitting the breakers with our nervous system. But we think that it's a horrible thing that is going to ruin our life, that we're never going to get out of. And sometimes it feels like that, and there's nothing wrong with that either. But once I understood how this system works, like, anxiety and depression is just telling you that you're too zoomed into your problems. You got to back off. And it's not real. And it's all made up. Like,
Right. I love
and
that.
that's hard for people to like, well, you have no idea how, again, you have no idea how hard my life is story.
Right.
And I don't, but that's thought too.
Right. I want to ask you a question
Yes.
because I know I just came to me. So you went through a divorce
Yes.
and it was hard. That was one of your hard times, but you're in a new relationship. Not new, but you're in a relationship now.
4 years, not gonna lie.
4 years.
Yep.
Where does your mind go how do you get into this clear mind, I'm deserving, worthy, into getting into this new relationship? Did you have to go through a lot to
Well,
get to
Dark Night of the
this?
Soul. No.
Sure.
No, I just kept doing it. Kept, you know, it's like it's a numbers game. It's like, oh, it's like always be closing. Like, see, that's the thing with thought, and that's the thing. Like, I didn't have to do anything. It's like you can't force. Once I kind of saw you can't force love. You can't force someone to stay. You can't force a relationship. And the greatest thing you can do is see what happens. And nobody likes loss. Nobody likes grief. But again, we need these things to move through us in order to see our divinity, in order to see what I'm pointing to and what coaches like myself have been pointing to, that share this understanding that Yeah, when you were in Sunday school and if you went to church on Sunday or synagogue or mosque, yeah, all that's true because all the great sages have been pointing to the same thing. We just haven't been paying attention because it's boring as hell. I mean, the scriptures, okay, great. Are they exciting? Is it like some kind, is it Disney World? Is it the greatest surf at San Clemente or Dana Point? No. But once you see like every religious institution, every, sit in the back of your church and you'll see what I'm pointing to.
Mhm.
You don't have to do anything. It's built into us.
Right.
And the politics of thinking, I call it's sometimes it's a polemic, but once we see that we don't have to force life, life's got us. And this is not some kind of Instagram cliche,
Right.
that just like gravity is going to happen every day. Just like if you cut yourself, it's going to heal. You don't have to think about, let me see, today I'm going to focus on healing, right?
Right. Right.
Like you get bronchitis, your body's going to, is a brilliant machine. That's why when people look at neurodiverse folks as something wrong, they're looking at it from the wrong direction.
Right. When
It's
you
just how
have
our brain
those,
works. It's how
right.
it works.
But when you say, your mind, your OCD, or, I like can't sit still and all these things, right? You still go through that. You just know
Yeah.
how to have a clear mind and control your thoughts.
I don't try to control anything. I just get really curious. I just notice, this it's self-awareness in many respects.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm being in the biggest piece out of all of this. If your audience can take home one thing that I've said, of all the gobbledygook that came out of my mouth during this episode, is once you see that you are perfectly built and perfectly designed to embrace both the good things and the bad things about you, like fall in love with all of you, your
Right.
frailties and everything. And again, not saying life's easy, not saying that you're not going to go through hard times, but it's in these little moments when you're in the middle of a freaking fire, I mean, and you think this is it, you're going to die, that you can have the quietest, most profound moments in your life.
Mhm.
And that sounds crazy because the intellect is not truth.
Right.
And people think, again, intellect's a brilliant technology. The brain's brilliant, but it's also really stupid. It's kind of like Google Translate. Like I always the other day I asked Alexa to play Billy Joel and it played Bruce Springsteen instead. I don't know what Alexa heard in
Oh,
Billy
funny.
Joel versus Bruce Springsteen. Same thing with our brain. The brain loves us, but it's a machine. But who we are is so much bigger than our machine.
Mhm.
And fall in love with your frailties. And that's hard for people to hear, especially if people are going through tough times. It's being okay with being caught up in your thinking, because we're never caught up all the time. Thought's just not sitting there. It's not. I always say it's like thought is like not in, like sitting in long-term parking lot C at LAX, or
Right.
the famous lot C, which is like the cheapest parking, and it's like 10 miles away. Like thought's just not like parked and at a gate somewhere. It's moving through,
Right.
right? Like it's not us. And when we see it as not us, and we get really curious when our mind goes a little kablooey, like it always does, I just start laughing at myself. It's like, what mind? What do you know?
Right.
And it's that
I love
levity
that.
that you don't have to force,
Mhm.
because levity is built into us. Sid Banks, who kind of he was this very average guy. He was a Scottish welder from British Columbia in the early 70s, who is the most unenlightened guy. Think of, like, he's a welder. He's a member of a union. He's like a man's man.
Right. That's funny.
Enlightenment, California,
Right.
no. And then one day he saw it, like he saw like the game He saw the illusion.
Hmm.
He's not, he was the most, unassuming guy. Like he didn't like want fame or wealth or anything. And he just kind of saw like, oh, I have mental health within me. I'm just not paying attention. And if I trust that life's got me, like, I know I'm going to stumble now and again. I might even trip over myself and fall on my face, but I'm going to get back up. And not only that, but if I take myself less seriously,
Mm-hmm.
and I see like when I'm caught up in the noise, have compassion for myself. Caught up in the noise is like road rage, like what we just been sharing, the human psychology, the drama, the politics, Putin, Zelensky, all that stuff. You see what really life's all about. It's about none of that.
Right.
And that's what Nita Morjani saw, when she
Right.
wrote the book Dying to Live, and what David saw,
Right.
your guest.
Right. When you were like going through uh, you think of not the calming that you had going through that process of understanding that, like meditation and, all the breath work, all, you're being a Reiki healer, all these tools that, really help people, understand, their tools instead of it coming to a place of just being present in the moment and getting used to being present in the moment. That Eckhart Tolle book, um, The Power of Now.
Yeah.
And even like when you're saying it's a game and the illusion, those two, my two favorite books are The Illusion by Richard. Have you read that?
I've heard of it, but I never read it.
Oh gosh. Okay. So that book, and then The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. Have you read that
Heard
book?
of it, never read it.
Okay. So those are probably
hold
like
on,
my
hold on, I
two
gotta write this
favorite
down.
books. But you just named my two favorite books probably that I used to give to everybody. But when you think of it as a game and look at it from the higher perspective of, who we are, the divinity within us, you believe in past, we go on. And what do you
Again,
believe?
you can believe in a ham sandwich. I mean,
Yes.
everything is so this is the thing. The greatest litmus is state of mind. Okay. I had a classic old car, Audi. I had an Audi Quattro when I was in college. It was a piece of crap. The car didn't start half the time. It was I had to jerry rig it. I used to go on dates and I had to carry a battery charger. It was really embarrassing. I loved the car. The freaking thing would not. It was embarrassing, but I loved the car. I didn't care. I still love the car. Like a Ferrari that has dents and has and is dirty inside and has some engine problems is still a Ferrari. I know that's such a cliche. Like we are all one thought away from mental health. It's all what it's all what you think about it. It's like if you wanted to tomorrow say to yourself, you know what, I'm gonna just take life. I see that life's got me. Like I want to live a happier life. I want to live a happier, I want to be more in that feel good experience, that feel good feeling, that space before thought, as Michael Neal talks about, that all the great sages have talked about. Right.
Right.
Well, that starts by just noticing, getting really curious about like the screenwriter between the ears, narrating every second of our life, every second, every moment. You can't escape it. That's not truth. Judgment, criticism, compartmentalizing, analysis, intellectualization. That's the brain always having to get involved, right? The brain always, the brain is the greatest helicopter pilot, helicopter mom. What do you call it?
Helicopter mom.
Helicopter mom. The
Yes.
brain loves you. It's doing its best. It doesn't know any better. The brain always needs to get involved. And sometimes it gets kind of stuck between the intelligence behind our life.
Mm-hmm.
The intelligence is not coming from the brain. There's no intelligence there. That's algorithms. That's zeros and ones. That's machine code. Literally. I mean, it's synapsing going on. once we see that the mind sometimes contaminates that intelligence innocently,
Mm-hmm.
and that we're gonna forget and get pissed off and get hurt, and knowing that that's normal, it opens up a lot of freedom and of understanding of that machine code when we're caught up. Because let me tell you something, if you think that CBT or EMDR or even meditation, because again, you look, I love meditation, but you don't need to like practice some kind of fancy meditation, because you are meditation, right?
Right.
um
Yes, I love that. And I heard you say that in something. And
yeah, I
it's
repeat
so
myself
true.
a lot.
No, but I love that. Well, it struck a chord in me because, everyone's like, oh, meditation. I said, I meditate all day long. It's because I'm really present. But it is, we're meditating all day long. I mean, I think of driving in the car, like I drive the girls around like the Uber mom. And, I'm thinking, gosh, where am I going? Like,
Right.
you catch yourself thinking, am I going to, this place? You just you're in this meditative state. And when you acknowledge that moment, and I mean, I can't just say that you repeat yourself, but that you say, live in the moment all the time and really
Yep.
embrace that moment. And
Yep. Oh, and I love that, driving around, shuttling your kids around, it doesn't even matter. Like, once we see how the system works, like that we're never going to win the game of thought. We're never going to beat the system. You know,
right.
it's like,
Yeah,
come
right.
on. Like, that's why
That's
people
funny.
people have yelled at me. I've been on shows like, what do you mean that, I've been to a therapist and I think therapy is great. I'm like, great, then wonderful. Like, I always tell people, don't listen to my words, you know, find your own truth. But
Yes.
if I can get you back into a feel good feeling, pointing you back to who you really are, not the noise,
Hmm.
like, and getting curious about like the stories that you're telling yourself, and seeing like that's made up, just like the newscasters making it up, just like the wars making it up, just like the stock market's making it up. Yes, we have to make money, we have to pay our bills. Okay, that's life.
Hmm.
But suffering, sometimes is optional.
It's optional.
And then
Right.
when we do suffer, make it okay. You don't even have to make it okay. Once we see, like, thinking always settles 100% of the time. I mean, for example, when your kids were little, I'm sure, like, they would have crazy temper tantrums, like fire and brimstone, the world's coming to an end. And like 5 minutes later, it's like it never happened.
Yeah.
Well, adults, we do the same thing, but we have this thing called memory, and that can trip us up sometimes.
Right.
So seeing that, like, we are a kid plus decades of a hard, of this recording, conditioning, habitual thought programming, and seeing like that to listen to that is optional. Again, you're going to get tripped up, and making peace with the fact that you're going to forget and get caught up in your machine, get caught up in the noise, get caught up in your intellect, and sometimes judge or be critical or be in a bad mood, or you know be anxious, have a panic attack. You look at it the same way as a car. If your car has a check engine light on, if okay, it's a machine, you get it fixed. Or you find out there's nothing wrong with it and it's just some fluke, right?
Right.
The car's
Right.
still going to drive. I mean,
Right.
right?
Yeah. As we end this amazing interview.
I went way, way, way
No,
into
I
that.
no,
Yeah.
I just it made me start thinking of things that we're going through right now. The Ukraine war, we just finished 2 years of COVID and still continuing. I think of my kids, that's their childhood, right? So they're watching the pray for Ukraine and mom, this COVID thing, everyone's sick and got to wear masks. And, this fear, 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 go stand on the corner at the school and hold the sign up with your kid. We're watching all of this like reaction and, people trying to protest against, the vaccine, everything. Right. So they're living in this childhood with me, which I thank God I am here to lead them to understanding that that's a reaction. tell me your way. Like with what would you say to these
Mhm.
kids or all these, I mean, adults that are
Mhm.
going through, I
I
mean,
love that question.
I
No,
will
no,
never turn the news on and listen to that. I
yeah.
can't stand the anyway, tell me.
No, this is good. And this is a great question. So pay attention to the resilience of the Ukrainian people. Pay attention to Zelensky's hope. Pay attention to, like, seriously, you could open up a YouTube video on, NBC, whatever the playback is for the bad news, uh, fire and brimstone news. And you don't listen to the narrator. The narrator is like our brain
Mm-hmm.
narrating the story. It's like Stephen King. It's like Pet Sematary, doom and gloom and death and destruction. Put it on mute, and then take mute off when the local population, is talking about resilience and still finding moments of love and of presence and of divinity and of silliness, because there's a lot of that. Um, in the great metaphor, and I love this is a great way to take this awesome episode out, is the fact that you hit mute when the Tom Brokaw, well, our generation, the Tom Brokaw-esque, blah 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 blah. I love Tom Brokaw, not Tom Brokaw. Who can we think is a little more dramatic? Someone from CNN or Fox News. Okay, is focusing on the drama and what's wrong. Well, hit the mute button. And then when there's moments of kids just playing in the background and they're talking about, like, I was watching, there was a orphanage. I think it was an orphanage for kids. It was a temporary shelter for kids or displaced kids. The parents were either, killed during this terrible war, or they were just lost, or they were given to this orphanage because the parents couldn't take care for whatever reason. And you see them playing, and you see the instructors playing with the kids. Pay attention to that stuff. Pay attention to the regular civilians putting on battle gear and what's coming out of their mouths. That's what's real, not the Fox News, CNN, spin cycle of doom and gloom.
Right.
Because we know through science, quote unquote, that what gets ratings, the addiction, right?
Right. Yeah, that's for sure.
Anxiety, and that's what, and Netflix knows that too. They're not stupid, but
Right.
start focusing on what's good with it. And
So
what's good, what's going on that's good, and focus on, like, how resilient all of us are. Not on, oh my God, we're gonna have a nuclear war. Oh my God, like Putin's crazy. Oh my God. I mean,
right. So wait, so
yeah,
I'm in
yeah,
these,
yeah,
I listen
yeah,
to,
yes, yes,
what
yes.
are you like in a conversation, or do you
Mm,
might not even surround yourself with people that talk like that? But when
of
you're, let's
course,
say you're at a,
all the
you're
time.
somewhere and you're at someone's house and you got invited, you don't really know them very well, but they're all talking about the doom and gloom and all talking about this, Ukraine situation and COVID, it's constant. What do you do in that situation?
Well, I'm going to take advice from Anita Morjani, because when I saw her and Michael Neal at I keep forgetting where it was, in Marina Del Rey, it was the workshop. She said, find your tribe. And if you're around people that are constantly, now, intuitively, if people are just scared, right? You can choose to be around that or not.
Right.
I listen, I have a best friend. We've been friends almost 40 years. Like, we've been friends since 5th grade. I'm aging myself. Okay. But him and I have we've been having the same argument since 1984. Okay. Since we were 10 years old.
Oh, funny.
Okay. But I love him. He's my brother.
Right.
I choose to keep him because his heart is just so good.
Right.
And who he is so good. And I love him. But take someone else that's just, caught up in their thinking and caught up in the noise all the time and are scared, and, spin cycle news, Fox News, they're all caught up in the nonsense. Yeah, you can choose not to be around those people. Again, life is short. I know that it's such a, it's like the Beatles song, life is short, love is real, trust your heart, what you feel, live your life, sing your song, make it right, make it strong. Okay. Total Beatles
Yes.
nerd. We ultimately have agency over who we want to share our lives with. And when we don't, like family, family,
Yeah, but
and
I'm
love.
saying, like, what if you are in a position? Yeah, I'm all about my tribe. Like, I choose that. It's not
Yeah.
very big. It's like I try to explain that to the girls. Like, Mom, I don't have any friends at school. I said, it's okay. Do you see?
Pick one.
Yeah, one's great.
One's enough.
Yeah,
Trust me. Yeah, it's like,
but
wait till you have kids, kids.
but I just mean, like, how, I see, the stuff on Instagram, these posts about, all the stuff that's going on, and I just can't ride on that train. And I just don't, I just wanted to know before we end, because this could go on forever, I could tell, but what
That's
what
what
do you
happens when
do?
two people are dropped into having cognitive reverie, which is good. So go ahead.
But when you get into a situation like that,
Mm.
and it's just, and you hear them talking and you can't escape, you can't leave, you're in a room, and it's, oh my gosh, Sam, this whole thing is just awful, oh my gosh, the vaccine, what do you do? How do
Well,
you handle that? I want to hear you.
there's a Yiddish expression for that, but it's the Michigas. One of my favorite words, and it's verkackt, which means like it's just a mess. Well, I have compassion for them, and again, sometimes I forget, and I'm like, enough, okay, we get it, okay, yeah. Um, just have compassion for them, because they think that this conflict is, making them feel this way, but it has nothing to do with the conflict in
Right,
Ukraine.
thank you.
It has to
That's what
do with, again, we're not living in a world of Ukraine outside conflict warfare. We're living in a world of thought warfare,
right.
right? It's an inside out experience, not outside in. And anybody, and I've had people, I remember once I was giving a talk, it wasn't really a talk, it was like a couple people. And there was one person who just argued with me the entire time. He didn't see, because he was in his intellect, and he
Mm-hmm.
was in his, this is not an intellectual understanding, this is a spiritual understanding, because who we are, not to be in sanctum, again, who we are is spiritual. That's a fact. That's a spiritual truth. Everything else, and I'm sure some of your listeners can be like, well, it's not that simple, Sam. I went to grad school and got my PhD and blah blah blah, and I didn't, this training. Oh, come on, spare me. Everything else is machine code, and it's what I also recommend is simplicity. Keep it simple. Everything in life simple.
Yes.
And sometimes, and when we forget simplicity and a feel good feeling and
Mm-hmm.
appreciating every moment,
Yes. Speaking
have
my
compassion for
language.
yourself when you slip up. It's
Right.
like, you're gonna slip up, guys. Like, you're gonna get angry at people. You're gonna get angry at yourself. You're gonna be pissed off. You're gonna, but that's just part of this funny, silly, short period of time we have on this spinning rock called Earth. But who we are, once we kind of see beyond, underneath the psychology,
Mm-hmm.
the again, I go back to, it's Atari 2600. I mean, our generation, you're 6 years older than me, but it's Atari 2600. It's Galaga. That's seriously, it is. And once you see the illusion, I'm not saying like the Matrix, like Neo and
Right.
like Keanu Reeves. I'm talking about, say what, you don't get enough sleep one day, and we'll end it on this. And then you get in your car and you're just crabby for no reason. You see the world, you're seeing the world from a very different perspective. When your state of mind, ladies and gentlemen, is cloudy, sometimes it's cloudy for no reason, you're just in a bad mood, you're tired, you're overwhelmed, that is no time to judge others, no time to judge yourself, and no time to make any really important decisions. It's like Mercury retrograde in your mind.
Right. Oh,
So
funny.
that's this, it's not complicated, because it gets complicated and then we forget, and then it gets simple again. One of my favorite coaches, Aaron Turner, there's this movie called, remember Liar Liar? We were like,
Yes.
okay,
Uh-huh.
old movie. Jim Carrey. Watch this, ladies and gentlemen, watch this, YouTube it. The Liar Liar, when he's beating his own ass, kicking his own ass in the bathroom. He's a lawyer. One day, remember, he can't lie. He has to tell the truth.
Yes, I
He might as well
forgot
be
about that.
a Bible study teacher than a lawyer. And he's kicking his own ass because all these thoughts are like just
Oh, that's funny.
violating his lawyer-esque, and we do that ourselves because we try to fix a system that's not broken, that has its automatic leveling system. Like, you put bad gas in your car. Like I've done, you put in cheap gas because gas is so expensive in California. I've done it, put in 87 and the car's not running right. But then all of a sudden it cleans itself out, the fuel
Mm.
injectors. That's low mood, that's state of mind. And
Yeah,
I'm a car
I
nerd,
love that.
but also like, think about it. You're flying on an airplane and there's turbulence. Turbulence is not going to crash the plane. It's uncomfortable, it's scary. But turbulence is not forever. The pilot finds another better altitude and you find smoother skies. The same thing with thought. When we look at it as you're going to have thought turbulence, sometimes even when everything's going right. I've worked with some pretty miserable and depressed and anxious billionaires. And I'm sure you know plenty of very wealthy, miserable people.
Right.
And I've met some very, very grateful and funny, loving, poor people.
Yep.
State of mind.
Yep. I love it. Thank you, Sam.
This is awesome. Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
me on.
That was so fun.
Yeah.
So your podcast, they can listen to your podcast.
Yeah. This The Fearless Now. It's on Instagram and Apple. And if they want to learn more about my work, it's my website is samledconsulting.com, and then LinkedIn, Sam Led. I'm even on TikTok, which is really weird.
I haven't got there yet. My
so
girls
bizarre.
get on. I don't know how to do that.
It's so weird. Like, yeah, it's actually easier than posting on Instagram because you don't have to I just put hashtags and like, all right.
Oh, fun. I have to look at it. I need to learn. The girls need to teach me.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you so much. It was so fun.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.